Okay, we're going to do a review of the Indigenous American unit using two of my handy review books, this one and this one. Okay, share. All right, we're also going to be looking at cross-cultural comparisons or connections of these works to some other works. Okay, so these four images the College Board gives us for Chavín de Huantar, which is in the northern highlands of Peru from the Chavín culture. So there's four specific names for all of these things here. So obviously you have the floor plan, or the ground plan where you're seeing the architecture of Chavín de Huantar. And then on the left is the Limestone stone that's made out of granite. And then the relief piece on the right is a relief sculpture that's also granite. And then on the bottom right, you have the nose ornament, which is gold alloy. All right, so Chavín de Huantar is a religious capital. The temple was 60 meters tall, adorned by a jaguar sculpture, which was a symbol of power. There is a hidden entrance to the temple that led to the stone corridor. So it's kind of like maze corridors underground, which is where we're going to see the lands on. Hang on, let me minimize this guy. Okay, so this whole complex is located in a high valley of the Peruvian Andes between the desert coast and the Amazonian lowlands. The quarried stone buildings were built on artificial terraces with an intricate system of vents and drains incorporated into them. This whole complex was used as a pilgrimage center. That means lots of people would come here for these ceremonies, and then only a few people would get to go down below to see the lands on. Due to the cultural exchange that took place here, it became an important center of ideological, cultural, and religious convergence. An old stone temple was incorporated into a newer complex with a circular plaza for large gatherings of worshipers. The complex contains many bas-relief, that means low relief sculptures, featuring anthropomorphic and zoomorphic symbols. So that's kind of these reliefs that we're seeing. The Lanzon Stela is located in a central chamber beneath the old temple and was used to carry the sound of the conch shell trumpet to the circular plaza above. Carved on the stela is the central deity of the Chavín culture. So some more details about the Lanzon. Lanzon is Spanish for blade. It is 15 feet tall and it is blade shaped. It depicts a powerful figure that is part human and part animal. So it's got animal claws and fangs and a human body. So that's going to be zoomorphic. It's got the head of snakes and face of a jaguar. The eyebrows terminate, they end in snakes. A very flat, low relief, designs in a curvilinear pattern, served as a cult figure. We said center of pilgrimage. Also, we talked about this one in class as being an axis mundi. It kind of has one hand pointing up and one hand pointing down. So pointing up to the heaven and pointing down to the earth. So it's kind of a connecting piece between the two. And then the relief sculpture on the right shows jaguars in shallow relief or low relief or bas relief, B-A-S relief. The nose ornament would have been worn by males and females under the nose, two snake heads on either end, and it makes the wearer into a supernatural being during ceremonies. So gold played a large part in the lives of the Chavín people. The gold jewelry, which represented status, was believed to allow the wearers to transform into sacred beings with superhuman powers. So that was from the other books. They both say the same thing. All right, I took one of those pieces. It's going to be the relief carving on the bottom left to compare to these other pieces from across different cultures. So what are these other pieces and what do you think they have in common? I don't have the titles on this one. So on the top left, we have the Egyptian palette of King Narmer. It was used as kind of like a makeup palette. You would mix your eye makeup into this little center here. And this is where we talked about registers and the old kingdom uniting with the new kingdom. You have the Pyxis of Almugira on the top right, and this is carved out of ivory, and it was like a container. And then this is also a type of container. This is the Roman battle sarcophagus. So these are all examples of a relief. These would be very low relief. This would be probably considered normal relief, and this would be very high relief where there's lots of deep cuts and shadows and things really protruding out from that flat surface. All right, title of this one is Yaxchilán in Chiapas, Mexico. Again, the College Board gives us 3 images for this. This is, I think, our only MayaN work of art. Yep, the only MayaN art that we look at. Okay, so Yaxchilán is a city that is set on a high terrace. It has a plaza surrounded by important buildings. I'm comparing my 2 books together. It's Cusco. So this architectural complex is located in modern-day Mexico, high in the green hills. The complex is known for stone lintels, that's the piece on the right, that were set above the doorways of stone structures. Remember, think back to Stonehenge. You have posts, it's kind of like columns, and then you have lintel, that's your horizontal piece. So that would have been sitting above the doorways. Carved with hieroglyphs and pictures describing the history of the city. Kind of, you can relate that easily to the Oba plaque of Benin. Many of the carvings are now in the possession of the British Museum. You can also relate that to the Oba plaque of Benin. Lintel 25, structure 23 depicts Lady Jacques, wife of the ruler Shield Jaguar II, in a hallucinatory state after a ritual bloodletting, which is a form of sacrifice. She is envisioning a serpent, which may be an ancestral spirit. So there's 3 of these lintels that kind of depict the same story. The one before this, she's pulling a rope through her tongue that has thorns. It's part of a bloodletting ritual. And then that blood is dripping onto these papers. She's holding the bowl of papers in her hand. And then she would have burned those papers. And then out of the smoke is this vision serpent that she has seen. The relief was part of a building constructed after a 150-year absence of the new construction. It may have been part of a building program meant to reinforce Shield Jaguar's divine ancestry and their right to rule. For some reason, we don't know the reason, the text is all in mirror image, so it's reversed. That's really interesting. But this is the first, yeah, so we're seeing like hieroglyphs, text and art. All right, some specifics about the architecture. So the one on the bottom left is structure 33, and the roof remains nearly intact with a large roof comb. That's the ornamented stone top on the roof. It has 3 doors. That makes me think of the triple cella, the Temple of Minerva, where it has 3 doors, but those all have 3 individual rooms for 3 gods. This one has 1 big empty room. And then, yep. All right, so some cross-cultural connections. What do we know about these and what can we say about them? So the one on the right is from Todaiji. The one on the bottom left is Lakshmana. And then the one on the bottom right is White Temple on its ziggurat. And these are all just temples, different types of temples, different cultures. Okay, Mesa Verde cliff dwellings in Colorado by the Anasazi, and this is sandstone. So this is a pueblo that is built right into the side of a cliff. So this is about a community that would have lived here. It housed about 250 people. The clans moved together for mutual support and defense. So they were shielded from other people coming to take over, from conquest, and they were also shielded from the weather. The top ledge is where they would store all their supplies, and that's where they would also have all of their food, and that's where they would get all their water from. So they would have to have ladders that would go up to that top ledge to go up there to get their goods to then bring back down. Prior to building these, the Anasazi in this region lived on top of the mesa. The people who resided here farmed the mesa top while living in these below protected chambers. And this is now a national park. You can go there. And the Anasazi people are the ancestors of the modern day Pueblo people. Okay, what these books don't talk about are the kivas. So within each little, oh yeah, you can see these circles. So these circles are all called kivas, and these will be part of their rituals or their ceremonies. And in each kiva is kind of like a hole, and that relates back to their creation myth of emerging from the earth as like an insect or a small being. Okay. All right. So cross-cultural connections. What pieces do we have here? So you've got the Bayamon Buddha on the top right. You have the Longmen Caves on the bottom left. And then you have Petra, Jordan on the bottom right. So these are all carved right into the cliffside using kind of like an earthwork, but using the earth as your material and your source. Hey, speaking of earthworks, there we go. How many more do we have? One. All right, we're going to take a break. Break time.